I did previously run in the 2022 general election, although I was not in the top candidates, given that we had 26 or so, which was a bit excessive.
So now you're one of seven.
Yes, which is, when you get down to it, about the same odds if everyone voted randomly, but I'm fairly confident that I will be in the top four this election.
Well, as you know, this is not an interview so much about policy. Oh, we'll probably touch on it. I want to go back to your roots in Sooke. What you were born and bred in and around Sooke, right?
I mean, technically, I was born in a Vancouver hospital, but the first house I ever lived in was the little white house that is currently under development permit for the bowling alley just on the start of West Coast Road. I don't really remember that. Since then, I have lived in Port Renfrew, Shirley, Otter Point, bit of a stint on Pender Island, like 7 years, 8 years there. Since then, in Shirley again, Otter Point, and most recently East Sooke. My business is currently in Sooke, although my web development business is obviously wherever I am because it's very much a remote job.
What are your first memories of being a kid in Sooke?
It's very much the forests and sea. I was outdoors, sometimes dangerously so, but mostly safely. My first non-easy word was apparently osprey at Botanical Beach out in Port Renfrew. Most of my early memories in Sooke are either hiking or boating or on the beach.
Do you what kind of, like, you mentioned that you were not necessarily a daredevil as a kid, but what kind of kid were you? Like, if you were describing a kid today, were you a nerdy kid? Were you an excitable kid? What kind of kid were you?
I was very much an outdoors kid. I definitely could be classified as a nerdy kid as well. I spent most of my time outdoors as a kid. If I wasn't outdoors, I was probably either playing games or reading. Much more on the board games than computer games at an early age. Although for my web development job, I actually started programming specifically to do modding of games.
So, as a kid, you had this incredible draw to nature. Can you describe what it is that nature actually means to you, what it does to you?
Well, nature just makes me feel right. It's a bit hard to describe, I guess, but there is a Japanese concept, shuriken, forest bathing. I totally subscribe to that everything feels better when you're in the woods and you can just relax and kind of set aside all of your concerns, worries, and then you come back refreshed.
It sounds like that's the place you go to find peace.
Yes, very much so. Whether it's forest or water, I don't care. It's just fresh air, birds in the wind, waves. Yeah.
You're definitely not a city kind of guy.
I wouldn't say so. I have spent very little time in city environments. I totally enjoy going to Vancouver or Victoria for a night on the town, for a concert. But when it comes down to it, I would much prefer to be in a small town or in a park.
I'm getting that that's where your happy place is.
Pretty much, yeah.
Now, when you went to school to study, what did you choose and why did you choose it?
So when I got to the end of high school, I was like, wow, university is really costly. This doesn't seem like a great choice here. I was quite interested in doing veterinary medicine, but I researched it. It would take a bachelor and then going to the closest veterinary college is in Saskatchewan, so it would be probably a 5-year process and get me into a lot of debt. I basically at that point decided I don't want to go into that much debt. I already know how to do web development. Let's take a couple years to see if I can transform that into business. And I worked full-time in web development and have worked full-time in web development for close to 10 years now. And I spent basically $0 on post-secondary education. So I can't say I made a mistake there.
Do you enjoy, what is it you enjoy about web development?
Solving problems. I started programming because there was a bug in a tool I was using, and the maintainer of that open source tool was retired. So I was like, well, he's not fixing it. Can I fix it? And I discovered I really liked fixing bugs, and then found that, it's okay to make new features as well, and solving problems for people is just as good as fixing bugs. It's the same satisfaction, and it also lets me make money and stay home and say, okay, I'm done my day. I don't need to commute. I don't need to add traffic to this road. I can just go and hike for a bit.
There's kind of a real duality about the fact that you love nature so much and yet your job keeps you inside staring at a screen for hours.
Yeah, I mean, any job in the modern era, whether or not you're outdoors or not, you're very much disconnected from nature. Like, there's very few jobs nowadays that you're connected to nature. Yes, there's park rangers and such, but even so, you spend a lot of time driving. Driving is not really connected to nature, even if you're in nature. You're in a box.
And that's big on you for you, isn't it? I mean, there's enjoying nature, but then there's environmental concerns, and you definitely have voiced a lot of environmental concerns.
Yeah, actually, in 2002, when I was 12, I, with my twin, was a delegate at the International Children's Conference of the Environment at UVic. That was a UNEP program. It was mostly talking about pesticides, especially glyphosate for that. Like, to me, climate change is a problem, but it's a long-term problem. The harms of pesticides are immediate. We see owls dying. We see the lack of biodiversity. Our windshields are no longer covered in bugs. That may be a nice thing for some people, but it's a major problem.
It's a world where we value convenience maybe more than other things.
Yeah, and some of the choices to me feel just really weird. Like, to me, a dandelion covered lawn is so much prettier than just a blank green square. But for some reason, somehow it became a status symbol to have a blank green square. So, as well as being better for the environment not to be using, and better for us, glyphosate, for example, is highly linked to many cancers. It's just, to me, it looks nicer to not be using them. Like, from an agricultural standpoint, I do understand reasons for using pesticides, and I actually really hate the way some terms are used. Like, pesticide is actually a meaningless term. I use it, but it's really meaningless. All it means is it's killing a pest. That covers a beer trap for slugs. That equally covers DDT. So it's a very meaningless term from any perspective where you're looking for detail.
You strike me as somebody that when you get really interested in something, you get very passionate about it.
I would say that is true, for sure. Yeah. I also did have significant allergies as a kid. Somewhat less now. I did outgrow many of them. But having migraines to pesticide exposures did not decrease my dislike of pesticides.
Tell me about that experience when you were 12 years old and you were at a conference where a whole lot of people are sharing ideas. And was that your first political introduction?
It wasn't my first political activity. It was certainly my first non-local activity. Like, yes, UVic is a local location, but there was 800 kids from around the world that I was talking to people who English was not their first language. It was also the first time I was really disappointed by a politician. But, if you're not disappointed by a politician at some point, you're very lucky.
So you were disappointed by a politician there. Can I ask which politician?
Yeah, that would be David Anderson, the Canadian Environment Minister at the time. As many politicians are wont to do, he was very much looking for photo opportunities and not really actually listening or caring what was being said.
So, what did that experience do to you in terms of you thinking about your own role in the world?
Just made me more determined to effect change wherever I could, whether it was with politics or not. I'd already been doing beach cleanups all my life. Just if I see garbage, I put it in my pocket. But that made me organize both beach cleanups and broom pulls more because it showed me that politics is a route that can achieve change. Trusting in politicians to achieve change is not the best way to do it. You need to do it yourself and try and make change everywhere.
So, having said that, as a politician, why would people necessarily have faith in you?
Honestly, you should never have faith in politicians. Their whole job is to satisfy as many people as possible. It is explicitly impossible to satisfy everyone. That said, we actually should have methods of recall for municipal politicians so that if politicians outright lie rather than, he didn't do what I wanted, is very different than he didn't do what he said. So I will do my best to do what I say. I cannot promise that I will make everyone happy. I'm sure I will make people unhappy if I'm elected. That's the nature of the job.
One of the most unique campaign slogans I've ever heard. I'm sure I will make people unhappy.
I hope to make more people happy than unhappy, but part of the job is also making hard decisions that no one wants to make because you've done the research, you believe it's the best choice. Like, at some point, we do have to build the Throop connector. It was expensive when it was looked at 15 years ago. It was expensive 20 years ago. It's a lot more expensive now. We're going to have to spend that money at some point. Choosing when to spend it falls on the politicians. Yes, if we're doing it borrowing, we need approval with a referendum, but choosing when to have the referendum is on the politicians. Choosing not to pass the OCP before the last general election was a choice basically designed to not have the incumbents have everyone mad at them because there was a lot of feeling about the draft OCP that it wasn't adequate. It wasn't adequate, but not passing it was a choice mostly designed not to anger people. So I feel that sometimes hard decisions have to be made.
So I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that because as an avid environmentalist, and you've spoken about how much you appreciate bicycling and so on, the Throop connector is a mechanism for maintaining and increasing a car culture. Yep. How do you reconcile, what's your line of thinking that you reconcile that? I'm trying to get at here, how do you come to conclusions when you have difficult, not just difficult, but contradictory things to your core beliefs?
There's very few choices that do not have pros and cons. Weighing pros and cons is sometimes hard. Specifically for the Throop connector, currently it's unsafe. If we do not have an alternate route, and this includes an additional bridge over Sooke River, which is obviously a future dated thing and a big amount of money, but without that, if we have a forest fire, how do people get out? It's fundamentally not safe. Safety has to be the first priority. And absolutely, I definitely understand and agree with the idea of traffic goes where there's roads, but at some point you have to say, we have 17,000 people here. Having one road in and out is unsafe. We need an alternate route. We can do that in ways that encourage driving. Absolutely. Any road building encourages driving to some degree, but we can also say, it's unsafe, do the safe thing, but at the same time, put the bike lanes in, put a sidewalk in, put more trees along the road so that we have less of the heat effect of the road.
you you strike me as a very I'm struggling for the right word. You're an avid thinker. I think you find the process of thinking something through to be exciting.
Yes, I would totally. I don't care what the topic is. I will enjoy a debate, regardless of what side I'm on. I will debate both sides. That's how you find the right solution to a problem.
So where does that come from?
I guess a lot. It was me and my twin. We're avid debaters, just ourselves, between what we would do. Partially, it's related to the fact that I was mostly homeschooled. So, a lot of times we got to choose what we would learn. Like, yes, we have to learn history. Okay. In a school system, you choose to learn this little bit of history based on the teacher today wants to teach that. There's the curriculum, but the amount that you can cover of that curriculum versus the world is pretty limited. So basically, when it came to big projects, me and my sister had to basically propose something about what we wanted to learn and why we wanted to learn it to our mum, and then we would do it, basically, if we gave a good enough reasoning. So, like, sometimes we did the same thing, sometimes we did different thing. One year we did a very big medieval Europe project, so for part of that, we went to medieval fairs and Renaissance fairs in Seattle and Vancouver. We checked out some SCA events. So it was very much cooperative, but you had to have reasons to learn this.
I like that. Yeah. Were you did your family debate a lot of stuff all the time, even outside of the homeschooling?
I wouldn't say we debated as much as we discussed everything. Like, some people go for the children are seen and not heard viewpoint. We were never that way. My mom actually was a non-voter much of her life, but my twin and I convinced her to vote because we talked about politics as kids, and we said, you should be voting because it matters to us.
You said you were quite a reader when you were young. What kind of books did you like most?
I would definitely say my favorite all-time book series is The Lord of the Rings. It was definitely one of my first big books that I personally read alone.
What do you get out of Lord of the Rings?
It's just... it makes me feel at home. Although the whole story takes part mostly not at home, but much grand fantasy is too pat. It's unbelievable. It's like, it's done, it's solved. Tolkien, for whatever personal reasons, I presume his war history, understood that defeating a great evil does not change the world. Evil exists everywhere. You have to do your best for yourself and make your community better. Like, it wasn't in the movies, for example, but the scouring of the Shire was really important to me. It showed that the heroes went off, they came back, they found that their little corner of the woods was not immune from the greater challenges of the world. The challenges are everywhere. You have to do your best wherever you are.
You mentioned community. What does community mean to you?
Community, to me, is you help your neighbors. That the most basic is you're walking down your road, you say hi to your neighbor at the mailbox 100 times. That's fine. Now, you see their dog. you walk it to their door. That's community to me.
That's a deceptively simple example. Because it embraces a lot of things there. It embraces the familiarity of a neighbor. It embraces the not having fear of what you don't know about the neighbor. So there's a lot in that example.
Yeah. It's like, to me, community is about a level of trust, basically, that everyone around you has. Obviously, they have their best interest at heart, but as long as it doesn't harm them, they will help you, and you will do the same.
So what do you think, I'm not asking for specific policy here, but what do you think fosters community?
What fosters community is green space, where people can gather together close to their homes. They don't have. As soon as you get in a car, you're not interacting. Maybe you will wave if you recognize a car. Maybe you're a person who waves generically at everyone on the road when they're near home. But fundamentally, as soon as you're in that box, you're disconnected. What makes a community is interacting with the other people, whether it is a small thing or a block party. It doesn't matter. It's the interactions that make the community.
And you need space to gather.
Yep. You need small parks, you need big parks, you need events. Like, most of the municipalities around Sooke have summer music events every weekend in a random park. Sooke doesn't have that. Most of the communities around here have water parks. Fishy Park hasn't had a water park in 15 years or something like that. So it's like, what you need for community is the space and regular events. Regular events the community can put on. It helps. We have a council, we have staff. We should be using that to the best of our ability to foster community.
I'm going to pivot a bit here, and I'm going to ask you this because it's come up in almost all the conversations. In fairness, I've brought it up, but that's okay. It's come up. And that's that we're living in a more uncertain world right now. What's happening in the States is affecting the world, and it's at best an uncertain economy that we're looking at. And there's realignments and all sorts of things going on. But with uncertainty with the economy usually comes a slowing of growth at best, if not worse. So if we go through that, what do you see needs to happen in Sooke to preserve and manage Sooke through that?
More commercial space. Sooke commercial space rents significantly higher than everywhere else in the southern Vancouver Island area because there's a lack of it. It's hard to find, and like this building itself, it's old. It's probably not going to last that much longer. Many years. It has roof leaks. The owner doesn't actually want to spend the money because it's old. In the winter, you can smell the building a little bit. It's musty. So yeah, we need more commercial space and more of those community events to keep people in Sooke, so that if you're going to a water park in Langford, you also need to get some groceries. Why wouldn't you just get the groceries when you're next door to the water park? And it's a little bit cheaper. It's Langford. Everything's always a little bit cheaper. If you're already in Sooke, you go to the water park down the street. Why are you going to drive half an hour each way to take your money out of the community? You'll just get the slightly more expensive stuff in the community. So we need to have those events. We need to keep the dollars in Sooke.
You mentioned community and your vision of communities helping people. What kind of helper are you? And I mean that if we hear that there's a flood coming, are you filling up the sandbags, or are you planning strategically where people need to go? What's your natural inclination?
My natural inclination is very much, I'm cutting down that tree. I've cut and dragged many trees off of the roads because we live in a community that trees often fall on roads. I have been first at the scene at accidents on Sooke Road, so my inclination is definitely to be
The hands-on.
hands on. If I'm on council, that is fundamentally not my role. And council should accept what their role is. Being on council is a limited term. Whether or not you get re-elected, it's going to be 4 years a term. While you're in that role, you should be doing the role that has been decided for that. Maybe you think the role should be expanded, that's fine, but you should be fulfilling the needs of that role first, priority.
Now, your life changed recently in a really big way, didn't it? Tell me about that.
Well, I do have a 21-month-old kid, so it's definitely fantastic.
And how has that changed your sense of how you move through the world?
Significantly, it hasn't changed. Like, I do go to the pool more. I'm making sure that he is a good swimmer. Personally, I'm an acceptable swimmer at best. I can swim 100 meters. I will be tired at the end. I can't say I'm comfortable on a boat, totally comfortable. But predominantly, I do the same things that I would do. I go for hikes. My kid has, in the first year of his life, he went to the top of Mount McGuire, Mount Quimper, probably 12 different peaks in the Sooke Hills. So I'm basically showing everything I love to my kid.
And how would you describe, when I asked you earlier what kind of kid were you, what would you say for your own child? What kind of kid is he?
Well, if I have the great privilege to work at home, often he will get up, I'll give him his breakfast, he'll play with his blocks for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he will be handing me shoes. So he is very much outdoors, and if he finds a stairs, he will be going up and down those stairs. Or if he finds a slope, like a ditch, he will be right at that edge. If he falls in, he won't go away from that. He will be going back and back to it until he successfully climbs down and back out. His view of a fall or something that he can't climb is he must try it again until he succeeds.
I think you're like that maybe too.
I don't really give up.
I'm going to ask you a last question here that I've asked everybody, and it has nothing to do with anything we've talked about, and that's, what kind of music do you listen to?
Significantly, I listen to what I can easily sing. So that's predominantly either Irish or country music.
Do you have a favorite artist?
It's hard to choose a singular artist, but probably all time, most hours of listening would be the Irish Rovers.
I actually play the Irish Rovers on my program because I have great memories of them as well.
Yeah. I actually, years ago, organized a couple concerts at the Shirley Hall. One of the musicians I had is a violinist who actually played on one of the Irish Rovers albums.
You've endeared yourself to me with that. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Sue.